Just because Donald Trump's big ugly bill has passed, the very reason for his civil war with Elon Musk, doesn't mean that it is anywhere close to over. In fact, the opposite. It is reigniting in the worst way for the both of them because Donald Trump was caught planting and leaking one of the worst stories Elon Musk was confronted with during his time in the White House, a criminal story, in fact, that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting the work that we are doing here. Now, before we can get into that story and how Donald Trump was caught, we got to start from the beginning, when he was originally asked this question.
Did you ever see Elon Musk get physical with the Treasury Secretary?
No, I didn't.
And I tried to ask...
They did have an argument, but I didn't see I didn't see a lot of physicality there.
And there was this New York Times report that he did not want to talk about, Elon Musk, that alleged that he, towards the end of his time in the White House, was blurring the lines between recreational use of drugs and medicinal. Do you think he ever had drugs here at the White House?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. Look, I wish him well. You understand. We had a good relationship, and I just wish him well. Very well, actually.
So the day that story in the New York Times broke about Elon Musk's alleged drug use on the campaign, and of course during his time in the White House, he was given the key to the White House, the key to the city, or the key to breaking our government from Donald Trump. They had a little farewell ceremony, and Peter Doocy asked Elon. He brushed off the story, and then, of course, days later after their fight began, Donald Trump did as well. I don't know if it was because he didn't want to continue to escalate this fight, or at the moment, if he didn't actually know what was happening. He's got the pudding brain, so it's no surprise if he didn't. But it seems like this story goes deeper, and that Donald Trump really did have an idea of what was going on. And that's beginning to come out as the civil war escalates, but it really started after we saw this story right here about Elon Musk and one of Donald Trump's new sworn enemies in Congress. Elon Musk indicates he'll donate to Rep. Thomas Massie, a Republican who has been excoriated by Donald Trump. Trump has indicated he will campaign against Massie. Elon Musk has indicated that he will donate to Rep. Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Massie, a fiscal hawk who was one of the 2 Republicans who voted against the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that cleared the House of Representatives in May, also labeled Donald Trump's strikes against Iran last month as not constitutional. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, and they should lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth, Elon Musk wrote in a post. Former Rep. Justin Amash replied by urging Musk to back Massie. When asked to support Massie in his opposition to this bloated budget that is absolutely terrible, Elon responded, "I will." Musk also responded to an individual who wrote, "I donated again Rep. Thomas Massie's election campaign. Who's next?" And Elon responded, "Me." In a statement to Fox News Digital on Tuesday morning, Massie said Elon's purchase of Twitter and cultivation of the X platform for free speech has already helped my cause immensely. It's allowed me to bypass conventional media, to refute the lies of both political parties, to provide transparency in how Congress works and what's actually inside of the bills we vote on. So there is clearly a bromance between these two who really despise Donald Trump, and where that begins to get interesting is when we look back on some of the speculation around Donald Trump and Elon Musk's breakup, because we no longer see it as speculation. But it was this clip of Peter Doocy that makes the actual news we are learning today so much clearer.
Still no clarity about whether or not what he thinks about that New York Times story, but I am told that Elon Musk's act with President Trump started to wear thin about a month ago. John.
You're telling me that you're a possible catalyst for this breakup, Peter?
I'm not saying I'm the catalyst. I'm just saying it seems like he had some stuff on his mind on his last day, and President Trump was sitting right there. He was watching that all unfold. I'm sure he would have loved to know what Elon Musk thinks about this New York Times report.
Do me a favor and don't get anywhere near my marriage. Thank you, Peter. Sandra?
So Peter said it at the time, and no one really knew whether to take it as true or not, that Donald Trump had been souring on Elon, that he was kind of tired of him. But this breaking news exploding the Elon Musk civil war with Donald Trump shows that that actually was the case. And I want to take a look. Trump is bragging that he planted the Elon Musk drug abuse story in the New York Times. Donald Trump is getting personal in his war on Elon Musk, according to author Michael Wolff. The president has been beefing about his former pal on phone calls with associates, claiming that he tipped off the New York Times about the billionaire's alleged drug use, Wolff told the Daily Beast podcast on Wednesday. The Times reported in May that the 53-year-old was using ketamine as well as Adderall, ecstasy, and psychedelic mushrooms during Trump's 2024 campaign, which he spent hundreds of millions to support. Musk denies that he was taking the drugs. I was tracking some Trump phone calls on Monday night, and it's sort of worth explaining here that over a long period of time, I've gotten to know and cultivated a lot of people who Trump regularly speaks to, Wolff told host Joanna Coles. Trump speaks to them and then they speak to each other, he said, adding, whoever he calls, he says the same thing to everybody. So you know exactly what is on his mind. Apparently Musk was on his mind on Monday. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO has reignited his feud with Trump this week, rage posting against the behemoth spending bill that Donald Trump passed through Congress. By Tuesday, it had irked Trump enough to provoke a public threat in which he threatened to deport him. He's calling people to say, do you think Elon is crazy? Wolff said of Trump. And one of these calls, many of them, he was on about, how many drugs he takes. He said, he takes drugs all the time. You know what? Don't you? The New York Times wrote about it. They said he takes drugs. According to Wolff, Trump said, actually, we dropped a dime to the New York Times on Elon's drug taking. Wolff said he has no idea if someone in Trump's team was actually the source of the story, but he is just claiming credit for that now. The Times said its account of Musk's behavior was based on interviews with more than a dozen people who have known or worked with him, as well as private messages reporters had obtained. In a statement provided to the Daily Beast, Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung, wrote the same blabbering nonsense that he always does, attacking Michael Wolff. Earlier in the conversation, though, Wolff offered of fire and fury inside the Trump White House and several other titles about the president said Musk and Trump's fallout has entered blood score territory. Even if the so-called big beautiful bill fails in the House, Elon is pissed now, Wolff said, predicting that the richest man in the world might actually create a new political party if that transpires. So the very clear takeaway here is not just that Trump was pissed and so he purposely threw Elon Musk under the bus, which if that is the truth, which it appears to be, then Elon has even that much more of a vendetta against Trump. But on top of that, Elon and Trump are just going to be beefing even more. It's not going to stop. And I love that. I couldn't be more excited, especially as Elon is pissed in the wake of Donald Trump's disgusting budget passing. And if he wants to spend hundreds of millions of dollars running TV and digital advertising all across the country saying exactly that, I'm fine. Go for it. Do your thing, man. I'm not going to support you, but I'm not going to get in the way of you educating Americans on how Donald Trump ran up the debt, something he promised he wouldn't do at the same time as he stole away their health care. Go for it, please. That would be an actual good use of your resources for once. Maybe we count that as a reinvestment of all that you stole from taxpayers. And speaking of stealing from taxpayers, that's exactly what this budget does and exactly what Robert Garcia called out in this clip right here.
Switch now to the topic of immigration. Republicans, a lot of them have been presenting what's in this bill as a national security issue. And according to a recent NBC News poll, about 51% of Americans do approve of President Trump's handling of the border and immigration. That's a NBC News Decision Desk poll. Is that something that you and Democrats really want to be against?
Well, look, I've seen obviously some polls where the president's also underwater on immigration issues. But at the end of the day, what this bill also does is it supercharges ICE. It doubles essentially the funding. And look, if you take the budgets of like the FBI, for example, another agencies, just take the intelligence agencies, and you combine them all together, that budget is actually now going to be less than the new budget for ICE is going to be. So the idea that ICE is going to have more resources than the FBI is crazy. And why? So we can deport and arrest people without criminal records, so we can deport United States citizens, so we can ensure that people don't have due process in this country so that Donald Trump can implement his immigration agenda. I think it's really shameful that we're in this direction. And in a moment where we know that about 60% of folks that are being apprehended have not been convicted of anything, actually, I think give ICE more money is just be more terror in our communities.
So your colleague Susan Delbene told us that she believes that the more people learn about this bill, the more they oppose it. Is that a major obstacle for you? A recent Fox News poll said that fewer than 1 in 5 registered voters say that they have a good understanding of what's in this bill. So are you just having a tough time getting people to tune in at this point?
Look, there's obviously a lot of competing information for folks out there, and we know that people are receiving their information in a lot of different ways. That's why we are going to spend the next few weeks and months ahead of us talking about how horrific this action was by the Republicans and Donald Trump. And we're going to spend a large part of our congressional recess, I certainly will be, in Republican districts, talking to voters directly and asking folks like David Valadao in California in the Central Valley why he would vote to cut Medicaid when he has more Medicaid recipients in his district than any other district in the state of California. It's going to impact farm workers and day laborers and small business owners. Republicans have to be held accountable for their corruption and why they're supporting this bill.
Speaking of Republicans accountable, what about Democrats? And hear this. Kamala Harris ran on extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts for those making under $400,000 a year. Why didn't we see Democrats put up their own counter legislation to this Trump mega bill, at least as a messaging tool?
I mean, we would have been happy to have worked with Republicans on any part of this bill, but they had no interest. They slammed it through the Senate, they slammed it through the House, and they made it clear on day one that they weren't actually interested in actual tax cuts for middle-class families or low-income families. They were interested by making permanent tax cuts for billionaires and millionaires. That was their focus on day one. They had no interest in bipartisanship. And on top of that, they made ICE even more larger and with the ability to terrorize communities. They took away health care from, we know, 60 to 17 million people. They removed food assistance. And so they did not work with us. We could have actually worked together to make this bill better, and they chose not to do so.
And Congressman, you are the newly minted ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. If Democrats do take control of the House, what would your plans be?
Well, look, I think oversight is obviously at the heart of what Congress does. We're focused on accountability and transparency. There's two main things. I mean, one, we are going to hold Donald Trump, his corruption, and the corruption of those that are trying to harm the American public accountable. When you think about this foreign planes and this crypto scheme he's doing that's enriching himself and his family and his foreign investment deals, that's got to be investigated and there's got to be accountability. And then at the same time, we've got to rebuild our government and our agencies post-DOGE. That is not government efficiency. We can actually work to make government work better for the public. That's the mission of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and we look forward to that work ahead.
This budget is disgusting, it's disgraceful, but more than anything, it's a betrayal. It is a betrayal of the very people who elected Donald Trump, and now they are going to feel the pain and understand their vote. I hate to say I told you so, but that looks like it's how it's going to play out. And we're going to cover that on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.